You are going to a meeting, you look through the prospectus, it can get overwhelming with what you choose. Do you do a sponsorship? Do you do a package sponsorship? Do you do some individual a la carte options? The FPMA SAM conference this year has offered a lot of different options for you, which is awesome because it's going to make it much easier for you to customize your sponsorship. But it can still get overwhelming because you may be sitting there with your team and you might say, well, this option looks really cool, but it might not align with your goals. And I think one of the biggest pitfalls that companies have when they choose whether or not to do a sponsorship, but then which sponsorship they actually go with, is they don't go back to the goal. And that is kind of what's going to be our key message here with this video, and how you choose, how you spend those sponsorship dollars is always taking it back to your goal.
One of the things I see companies do fairly often is, especially if they go to the same conference year after year, like the SAM conference, they'll invest in the same opportunities year after year. And so you need to be strategic in not only choosing things that match your goal and your message, but also don't repeat the same things just because that's the way you've always done it. We never recommend just doing something because that's the way you've always done it. If it's working, great. But if you're just used to it, like you just always do the bags every year, that's not a good enough reason to invest $6,000 in bags.
One of the hardest pieces to figure out, I think, is kind of identifying who you are in the mix of the competitors at this show. So that's something that you need to consider. How do you break out of the saturation of all the other companies that are similar to you? You might know, how well is your brand known? Have you been in the game for 20 years? Have you been in the game for 5 years? Have you been in the game for 6 months? How well do we know your brand? These are things that you really have to consider when you're thinking about the types of sponsorship options you choose. What's going to be the thing that makes people notice you or makes you top of mind in comparison to the other companies that are similar to you at that specific show?
One of the challenges we hear about pretty often is, my company has been around for 100 years. Everyone knows who we are. How do I get new attention? Here's a couple tips for that. One, you want to focus on any young physicians. They're new to the industry. They haven't been seeing you for 100 years. So focus your marketing efforts on them. And two, your logo is recognizable already. You don't need to put it everywhere. What you do need to put everywhere is a photo of a product that you want to feature, or maybe a product that you've had on the shelf forever, and it's just for some reason seeing a lull in sales, and that's because people have forgotten about it. So rebrand your imaging for that product, put that product logo or that product image everywhere, and just focus on that message, because we don't need to know that XYZ podiatry company is the best at what they do, because we already know that. We need to know, what is the product that you have that I've forgotten that you have?
If you're in those types of shoes, what sponsorship options make sense for you? If it's something that we already know is, we don't need to know that urea works, right? We don't need to know that salicylic acid works for warts. So signing up for a lecture to talk about salicylic acid for warts, I don't think that's the best investment in your dollars. You're not telling us anything that they don't already know. So maybe a lecture, even though getting on the podium always seems like this really fantastic idea for a sponsorship, it might not make sense. So use those dollars in some other way. And it could just be more branding. It could be a cocktail hour just to get more traffic at your booth. Think of different ways where you've got a bucket of money, and if lecturing, using that money on a lecture to tell people stuff they already know, I don't think you're gonna get the ROI that you're looking for. You are a brand new company and people aren't familiar with your products, they're not familiar with your company in general, but you put your logo everywhere, you've got a branded team, you've got a high energy booth, that can create a buzz. That can, like, people will probably show up and say, what are you doing?
Sam has lots of different options. Obviously, they have some that are included in their sponsorship packages, but this year they're offering a wide variety of a la carte options. Some of the ones that I find interesting are, especially for companies who are trying to reach that young physician demographic, consider investing in sponsoring a student. You can sponsor a student to attend for free, and then you have a relationship with that student. They're probably going to be a customer of yours in the future. We've heard before that investing in students and residents does pay off in the future. Obviously, they have lots of signage ideas, like the floor stickers are interesting. They have the standard meter boards and things like that. The column wraps are something that's new and different. This is our first year at the Hyatt Regency. So it's not like a floor plan that we've all walked 1,000 times before. Everything's just going to be a blur. At this hotel, everything will look new and fresh. So any opportunity that you decide on as far as on-site signage will get attention because it's going to be a completely new location. Some of the standards, like, attendee bags and conference bag inserts, those could work for you too. I will make the suggestion, if you're going to do attendee bags, don't do a standard boring bag with your logo. Do something that's splashy. Maybe it's neon colored, maybe it's metallic gold. Do something that gets attention so when people see it and they don't have one, they want one. If you're gonna do the attendee bag insert, which is relatively inexpensive, I think it's $1,000, and you can send things to be inserted into the bags, do not send a flyer or a catalog or a keychain. Send something that gets attention and asks them to do something, like a coupon that says, bring this to our booth and cash it in for a $5 Amazon gift